Okay, I think we're live. This is Michael Finocchiaro on the AI Across the Product Lifecycle podcast, and I'm joined today by Tanmay Aggarwal. I hope I said that right, Tanmay, of Lambda Function, and by Marco Bauer of up2parts. I'm very happy to see you guys. How are you guys doing today? Good?
Very good, thank you.
Great. So we wanted first I wanted you guys to be able to introduce yourselves and what your companies do before we jump into the more AI questions. So do you want to lead us off, Tanmay, on what you do and you know your parkour and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Michael, for having me. And Marco, great to see you again. So my name is Tanmay Aggarwal. I'm the founder and CEO at Lambda Function. We're based out of San Francisco. We started in 2020 with the idea of looking at how AI/ML might impact the world of precision manufacturing. Fast forward 5 years later, I think all those themes have converged really well, and we're coming to see kind of a lot of change in the market, of course. So excited to be here and excited to chat more about what we're seeing here. Marco.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Marco Bauer. I'm the founder and CEO of OptoParts. We are located in Germany, in Bavaria. Our company started also 2020, but the history is going back to 2010, where we started a manufacturing company. So that was the groundwork of OptoParts. And then we started to develop a software first for our own demands to automate the quoting, because that was the biggest pain point in our manufacturing company, to speed up this process. And now, after 5 years later, we are also doing AI automation for quoting machining parts, and also do proposals for CAM projects and transfer this information to existing CAM systems.
Fairly cool. So I guess both of you have been pretty bullish on AI from the beginning. So Marco, when I mean, probably you were doing even AI before the Gen AI LLM thing, but what was your feeling when all this stuff came out, when OpenAI kind of opened the floodgates, if you will?
I think in the beginning I was, on the one hand, quite skeptical, but on the other hand, I also see the chances for AI. I think the most important thing where I was concerned about is about the right expectations on AI and about the right usage of AI. So I think it's a technology where you can, when you have not the wrong when you have wrong expectations, or when you use it in a different way, you can do good things and also bad things with AI. And so I was in the beginning more skeptical, I think.
How about you, Tanmay?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm reflecting on, like, back in 2020 when, like, I remember playing around with GANs in 2020, and at that time GANs were being used for art work, like being able to recreate, let's say, a historical image of an art using a GAN model, and it was quite impressive at that time, right? And then when LLMs came around in 2022, 23 time period, I think it's actually pretty amazing what these models have been able to do with traditional kind of natural language processing, which is essentially what these are doing. So when they started, I think, like, my biggest skepticism was around what could these models do for non-natural language use cases. And I think what we do at Lambda Function, right, a lot of what we do is taking the data out of CNC machines and trying to create intelligence out of machine generated data, essentially. And so that question really has, and it continues to persist in my mind, which is at what point in time will these models get to the point where they can start actually making sense out of machine generated data? So that's, I think, where my question has always been around. But I think it's incredible to just see what these models can already do. And I think that just goes to show the power that these may have.
Absolutely. And we'll get into that a little more later in terms of that. But before that, since you guys are both, created software platforms, there's a lot of hype around vibe coding, but in fact, I think the fundamental job of every developer on the planet has been fundamentally changed since the advent of Cursor and all these other tools. How on a daily basis are your developers, Tanmay, using these tools to enhance their experience as a developer? And obviously, how is that impacting a Lambda function as an app in terms of the development process?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, very timely, because just last week we had an internal all hands talking about similar topics. And I think the answer to that, Michael, I would say is like there's one a more of a citizen developer perspective on adopting AI, and then there's a more of an organizational view on adopting AI for improved software development. I think over the last few years, we've definitely seen, individuals within our team who've experimented with tools to accelerate their workflows, and that's been great, I think. But now I think the biggest transformation that's happening within Lambda Function is we are taking it as an organizational priority, which is, how do we transform our entire SDLC cycle from the traditional way of doing software development to now a more AI augmented way of doing software development. And I think that is a huge transformation. I think the traditional approach of, the classic kind of Scrum model
Agile.
teams is changing very dramatically. I'm hearing more and more of this concept of team of one. That's a concept that I'm myself introducing within the organization, which is that each developer should think of what would they do if they were a team of one. How could they be a full stack, end to end, with leveraging kind of AI copilots to be the pending, let's say, skill sets that maybe they were missing as an individual. And I think that's at least the direction we are going. And I think that's, for us, it's an existential question. I think in the AI company, we need to adopt some of this and explore that and then define what that means for the future. If we ever think of competing in this world going forward.
Yeah, I think on my previous podcast, one of the founders said he could tell who was using it and who was not in terms of how productive they were. The ones that were using AI were far more productive than the ones that were not. We seem to have lost Marco. I hope he'll be back. Are you guys using AI primarily when you're developing? Are you using like Cursor and or are you using just on the side? I mean, how are you using it?
I think honestly, we don't yet have a kind of a formal, like, mapped out, hey, here are the tools that we are using versus not using. I think we are kind of right now been a much more of an exploratory approach where we want to let different team members explore different tools that are out there. But I kind of see it from the lens of where can we kind of see the highest ROI with the lowest amount of change management associated with it. But for example, like code reviews is something that I've been seeing a lot of AI being used for, and I think that's an interesting use case for it. I think how can we further strengthen our QA testing processes is another interesting use cases. So I think I look at it from that lens of what's the bottleneck, where can we see this as being an augmentation layer in the near term.
I was thinking too, like I see a lot, or I've heard a lot of people using it for product management, like creating PRDs and things like that. Makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back, Marco. Thank goodness.
Yes, sorry. Power shortage in Germany.
Oh, I thought maybe it was another Cloudflare error, like
maybe
an hour ago. How are you? So we were, Tanmay was just talking about how at Lambda Function they were using it.
I heard it.
Okay, yeah. So how about at up2parts? Let's hear about that.
We are using LLM tools in different phases by the development. We are using GitHub Copilot for sure for the senior developers. That's important. That we decided that only senior level developers are using LLM tools because we think it's important that the junior developers,
they need to have better chops.
Yes, and only rely on LLM. It doesn't improve the quality of the code. Then we're using LLM systems for quality assurance in the end by checking the code. And I think for up2parts, especially in the sales, it was very helpful to integrate LLM tools. For example, in the past we did a lot of screencasts and anything else by recording with native speakers with high costs. And today we use LLM tools we record the video in an LLM generated English, and then we transfer this screencasts in no time into Chinese, into Japanese, and the quality is quite impressive. And now, from the product perspective, we are working also to use LLM models to communicate with the users, because we see that, especially when you have a very complex technical issues, you build trust when you have a Copilot interaction where a LLM model is communicating with the user in normal words, and not just have a list of features or a list of tools. I think the user feeling more trust into the system when our LLM is explaining, this is a feature, there's a pocket, we decided to choose this flat end mill because the tool lifetime is good, the speeds and feeds are good, and so on. And for that, LLM is quite an impressive technology.
You guys are both just leveraging it. Well, let me just go into the second question, because that's where I was going with that. So when I'm using Lambda Function or up2parts, am I interacting directly with an AI, or is there more AI underneath the covers? Where is it actually implemented in your system, Marco?
I think it's more, at the moment, it's more underneath. So we have AI tools in the background, like simple services, like a process predictor, where we decide, is it a lathe part or is it a milled part? And also in the back end, where we are doing data analysis, the feature recognition, but the UI at the moment is not really like a Copilot interaction. It's like a standard UI, and it's more underneath.
Okay. How about for Lambda Function?
I would say very similar, Michael. We're see a couple of thoughts there. One, I think from our experience to date, I think customers probably don't care much about the technology. They really just care about what can the technology do for me in terms of what business impact it's going to drive. So I'm a pretty strong believer of kind of keeping the technology behind the covers. It really shouldn't matter to the user. But independent of that, I think currently within Lambda as well, like we see all of the utilization of AI currently still being behind the scenes, powering the various use cases that we're going after. I do think there's a very strong argument to be made to have a UI layer where the end user does interact with that as well. But I think we're just not there yet in terms of at least Lambda Function's journey of building that into the product priority roadmap.
But are there things that you think that you would never use AI for, that you're like, no, that I'll never delegate, that's got to be human? Or you think it's all a matter of time that the LLMs get mature enough to handle just about everything?
So from my lens, one, I think LLM is one tool in the toolkit. I even within Lambda, like we actually, a lot of our kind of AI application has been traditional ML in various forms. Again, it's also because we started prior to kind of the whole LLM wave kicking in. And today we think of LLM as another tool which can help augment what we're doing in certain ways, which is great. And yes, I do think that I think eventually I'm starting to be a big believer in the whole agentic AI conversation, Michael. So I do think that framework fits very well with our original hypothesis behind unlocking autonomy in the manufacturing domain. And you think about kind of the 5 levels of autonomy, and you think about currently the world being at kind of more of an AI assistant, but we are starting to see more and more customers wanting to get into level 2, level 3 type of autonomy, of a high risk autonomy. So you kind of need these agentic solutions that can allow for that degree of autonomy. So I do think that eventually maybe we'll get to a point where certain workflows can be fully autonomous, but I think it'll be very workflow specific.
Yeah, that's a good. Actually, I was using, when I've been talking about, I've been using Aora Berry of PTC's thing of advise, assist, automate. It's a 3-level, like advises the Copilot, just telling you stuff, assists you do one, like, here's a bunch of options, and which one do you want me to do? And then it does it, and then automate, you give it a workflow. So I can concur with that idea of having several stages. How about you, Marco? Is you same kind of concept for up2parts?
Yeah, I think so. So I think manufacturing is too complex to think to do everything with AI or with LLM models. It's also a part of the tool set. But yeah, I think in the end, it's important to use different tools and to try to automate what's possible and what really brings a user benefit for saving time, but not always to try to automate everything, to put a lot of efforts in developing some stuff, and then you save in the end maybe 2% of your whole process time. And for this, manufacturing is definitely too complex that you can do everything in short time.
That reminds me, like when I interviewed Karan Talati of First Resonance, we were talking about that in engineering in general, we like deterministic things. And the thing that bothers us about AI, particularly LLMs, is they're probabilistic. And then Karan very brilliantly said, but manufacturing is pretty probabilistic too. It's the head engineer might not show up. He might be sick. A guy could make an error. The guy could cut his finger off in a mill. I mean, anything can happen, right? But besides that, I mean, how are you guys putting in those guardrails to so that you don't get those hallucinations where you're asking about a miller and he gives you an answer for a drill? I mean, how do you what kind of guardrails are you putting in place to avoid those kind of hallucinations?
I can go first, Marco. Yeah, I think it's a great question there, Michael. I think from our lens, I think that's where the subject matter expertise comes in. And I think the
human supervision or like training the AI on the expertise.
Various aspects to it, honestly, Michael. I think, and I think both the domain Marco and I we play in is a complex enough field where this is not traditional information you just find on the internet. Right. And there's a fair bit of subject matter expertise that people have acquired over the decades of doing this trade. And at least at Lambda Function, like a lot of what we've had to do is kind of painstakingly taken the time to transform some of that intellectual know-how, human capital into code that we can feed into an LLM or alternative ways of applying AI techniques to it. And that, for us, creates guardrails. Those guardrails are very, very important, I think, in differentiating what a traditional vanilla LLM could do in our subject matter versus an LLM powered with Lambda Function's proprietary own data sets could do, right? Similarly, I think introducing more physics-based machine learning techniques can further guardrail some of the output that otherwise theoretically dumb AI models will not know what to do with. So that's my 2 cents on it. Marco, can you hear?
Yeah. So in our solution, the interaction with the user is quite deterministic. So we have like a quality assurance level between the AI and the user interface, because when it comes to manufacturing, I think it's very important that you don't have probability, because our machine tools are quite expensive, and it's important not to have not to rely on probability. So I think in manufacturing, it's important that 7 + 5 is equal 12 and not probably 12. And so we are using the AI in the background more for analyzing historic data of the customer, and then we recognize patterns within the data of the customer. And then the result out of this analyzation is like rule sets, where we see there are different routes in a manufacturing company, and then often we use these routes to discuss these routes with the customers, because sometimes you see in old data some routes without any sense. And then you discuss with the customer, and then you realize, at that time we created this data. This 1 milling machine was under maintenance, and that was the reason why we took another route. Please delete this route because that's not our standard route. and then we give this quality controlled system or rule set into the application, and that's what the user is working with. And so I think the user experience is quite deterministic, and I think that's very important to build up trust.
So is the idea also to find like smaller workflows? Like maybe there's things that are less performance critical that couldn't damage the machine, and those things you can automate, like maybe some of the cleanup tasks or administrative tasks, and then some other task you always have to have the human in the loop, like you were just saying, because well, actually that milling machine wasn't working, and so that data is not valid. We've got to go clean that up.
I think the lack is the context of the data we have in manufacturing. So we have a lot of data, but mostly the context is missing, and then it's hard to understand some data fractures, why the data isn't that in that way. And the second thing is, I think the users within manufacturing, the CAM users, for example, they have so many things to do, and at one time they have to do the machine setup. Maybe they have to make the first part, and then when you have a system with a lot of questions during your work, they are not happy to give a lot of feedback during their work. And so I think when we have more context data, then it's easier also to use AI to clean up data. But for that, we need definitely the context.
Michael, I would want to just go back to that question, probabilistic versus deterministic, in a different perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is, I really like what Marco was saying. Like, if you think about the process planning stage of the use case, right there, for example, one way to handle deterministic versus probabilistic is like by giving choices to the user, and that allows one approach to go around that. I mean, that's kind of what we do at Lambda, right? We rather than saying, hey, here's the one and only way you can go about machining this particular feature, here are the 4 different ways you could go about doing it, but the last mile context we're missing, so we're going to let the user kind of decide that. So we kind of go from that AI kind of giving you a probabilistic approach, and then the user kind of turning that probabilistic output into a deterministic selection. Yeah. So that's I think one thing that I think works well. The other is when you think about, like, at least in the world of Lambda, right, we connect to the shop floor downstream and we get the data out of the CNC machines, right? A big reason of doing that is because there's inherent process variability in CNC, in manufacturing. So because there's inherent process variability, that by nature, by design, is probabilistic in nature. Right. So that turns into a very good use case to apply AI, because actually the current domain of manufacturing struggles with the fact that you take a probabilistic environment and try to force fit it into a deterministic system. And that's where the problem often is, because there's a probability that a tool may break. There's a probability that this part may go out of spec given the current condition of the machining system, but we don't have the data or the visibility into that nature of that process, and we kind of have to live with the deterministic outcome that creates at the end. So I find that kind of to be an area where the probabilistic aspect of AI actually is a very good is a strength in that scenario.
That's interesting. We'll probably see more research around that collision of those two worlds, and where those things are actually with the probabilistic. That's a really good point. The fact that probabilistic thing is something to take into account and not just discard for those reasons. That's cool. So like when I was also wondering, like, are you guys using LLMs that you've trained via RAG, or do you have the idea of, I don't know if you saw the podcast I did with Maur Farid of Leo AI, where he actually created a large mechanical model. He created his own by adding all this mechanical engineering knowledge to a large language model that he trained. How are you guys doing it? How are you adding? Are you just using RAG to add, knowledge sets of information you've gotten from all your experience, or are you training a specific LLM around your data set, Marco?
I think when it comes to LLM, we are not we are using like standard models. What we did in the past was, especially regarding the geometry recognition, was that we created synthetic data around of geometry and build up own models. But that is not really LLM. That was more for feature recognition. But in general, for LLM, we are using more the standard models that are in place in the market.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in our case, again, historically, and even now, like a lot of what we've done has been, traditional ML, like decision tree models is something we use very, very commonly. Downstream, we use things like LSTM models and other kind of techniques. We are, though, very explicitly looking into the RAG approach, Michael, for introducing LLMs and LRMs into the workflow. But that's kind of something where we are in the early days of looking into how to incorporate that relative to the other techniques we're already using.
Because I imagine that would be also a big change to your tool chain, because you'd have to have LLM ops and you'd have to change the DevOps chain to include all that stuff, which would make it a little more complicated,
Thankfully
right?
for us, at least, like I think from day one, we built it in a very modular manner. So it's
Like
actually
ML ops is already there.
everything that we've done fits very well into the whole agentic AI kind of framework and architecture. So we see kind of that being the evolution for us, where whatever we have so far are individual components that fit within a broader orchestration layer.
So we've covered like how you guys perceived AI, how you use your developers using it, how it's used in your products. Now, as we head towards the end of 2026, and we just saw today Jeff Bezos announced Prometheus, an industrial metaverse company, $6.2 billion investment, which is kind of interesting because I'm doing a series of posts about the industrial metaverse. Where do you guys stand on AI today? And, looking at the end of 2025 into 2026, are you still super bullish? Are you kind of concerned? Where do you think it's going to go? What are your thoughts about it?
Marco?
Either of you can pick that up. I don't mind.
I think in general, when it comes to AI in general, I'm quite bullish. I think that's a very interesting technology, and we will see a lot of changes in the future based on AI. Regarding manufacturing, I'm still skeptical because I'm not sure if the users are, or the companies are ready for AI. Because I think they are searching for AI because everybody is talking about AI and it's important to use any kind of AI. But maybe that's not the correct time. And maybe it takes 2 years later to start with AI in manufacturing. That comes to the discussion we had earlier regarding deterministic and probability. And I think that at the current state in manufacturing, the people are feeling better to have not this black box approach where they put something in and have something out and don't understand. I think the technicians, they like to understand, and they like to sit in the driver's seat. And so I think for real AI applications, as we see it in other industries, it will take some time in manufacturing that the users are trustful in this technology and they would like to understand it. And yeah, so I think in that industry, I'm more skeptical, especially in Europe and in Germany. In a broader view, I'm definitely bullish in AI.
Well, maybe if you don't mind me kind of drilling down on that, like, do you think that there's a difference then from smaller manufacturers to larger ones? Would the larger ones be maybe more aggressive? They've got more money and to burn, whereas the smaller ones, if they make a mistake, they could be out of business. Is there a bit of a difference there?
No,
Not really.
I think maybe it's the way around. We see some smaller companies, and when you have one person in place at the moment who is responsible for CAM and for the quoting and for the first part on the machine, for him it's easier to understand the whole process. In bigger corporates where you have different departments, you have a lot of talks between the departments, and I think for them it's maybe harder in the context of manufacturing. So I see here SMEs more flexible.
Interesting. You have that same experience? I mean, Marco and I are sitting in Europe. You're sitting in the States, Tanmay.
Yeah,
Probably have a different perspective.
it's interesting. I think you'll hear a different perspective, for sure. I see that kind of definitely, of course, continue to be very, very bullish. I think we're in the early days. We have not even scratched the surface on what's to come. I fully agree with Marco in the pragmatic nature of manufacturing as a domain, and thereby I think like any new technology, there's going to be an adoption curve, right? And that's gonna, I look at it like the way maybe robotics was in manufacturing 15 years ago.
Mm.
It's kind of like maybe where AI is today in manufacturing. So like, it's taken 15 years for robotics to become like mainstream. I think at this point, hopefully I can say that without offending anybody, but I think it's time to become more mainstream now. I hope it's not going to take 15 more years for AI to become mainstream in manufacturing, but I do see a very clear demand pull that's emerging in the market. Like customers are definitely in the awareness and exploration phase right now, but you can start seeing the early adopters and innovators reaching out, looking for technologies, which was not the case 3 years ago. I think thanks to the whole ChatGPT movement and whatnot, it has created this sense of awareness, which is causing the early adopters to get out of their comfort zone and look for technologies like probably what up2parts provides or Lambda Function provides, and we are starting to see that demand pull, and we are seeing that at a global level, not from specific geographies. It does tend to concentrate in certain segments of the market. I think the behavior patterns of an OEM and a large tier 1 and a tier 2 is very different than a behavior pattern of a SME. And to your point, Michael, I do think that the budget allocation and dollars available to explore and adopt some of these technologies are going to vary quite meaningfully. And I think then it comes down to like your own playbook. Who are you focused on? Your approach to bringing a new technology to your customer base. But I do think there's demand probably in both ends of the spectrum, but probably very different demand. So like it's very, very clear that I think that you cannot go in with the same playbook try and serve the SMB category as well as the large enterprise category, because I think the needs are very, very different.
That makes me want to ask, like, obviously, the market is dominated by three players, right? The big three, and yet, in my studies, I found 380 plus startups, from CAE to CAM to digital thread, MBSE, new kinds of doing design. I mean, it's insane, and you would think, well, the big three should be doing all that stuff. So there seems to be a gap. Is that because they just are too slow to catch up, and you guys are much more agile and you can get the solutions out much faster with more later technology, and you're taking advantage of that? I mean, I'm not sure that 2 years ago there were 380 companies doing startups in engineering software and industrial AI. I don't think there were more than 200, and I'm probably only scratching the surface. There might be 450 out there. There might be another 80 I haven't found yet. I mean, every day I found another 5 or 8 or 10. It's just an interesting dynamic. How do you guys see that? Does that excite you guys? You say, wow, I've really got this opportunity and I want to grow and become the next Siemens, Comos, or the next Simatech? Or you're thinking, no, I want to be acquired by one of those guys. How do you guys see that? Do you think that in other words, are we moving towards these monoliths will end up acquiring you guys and remain monoliths? Or are we starting to chop away at the foundations of this monolithic system and go to something more agentic, where there's a lot of room for everybody to play and get a best of breed solution for whatever I'm doing, whether it's manufacturing or design or ideation? So sorry, kind of big question, but I just wanted to see how you guys would react.
Yeah, maybe I can kick off, Marco, and I'm curious to hear your perspective on it. But first of all, I'm surprised it's only 380.
Yeah,
like
there's
I
probably
would
more.
think a lot more. I think, but that's great, and it's amazing that you're starting to map it out. I think that's great. But I think Michael, the large incumbents, at least from our lens, the way I see it and the way we've been seeing it over the last few years, I think they are taking a much more of a platform approach. It's a broad domain, right? It's a very, very broad domain, and so if you're at the size of one of these large companies, they are looking at a much broader problem statement. They're looking at tapping into much bigger budget pools of the customer profiles, while startups like us are trying to identify specific use cases in that broad field where we can come in and provide, hopefully, a meaningful amount of value creation for the customer to create our own market space. And then, and I think that's what's creating a bit of a synergistic relationship between companies like us and the larger players, where again we're very grateful today. Like we're partnered with Siemens and Autodesk and Mastercam and others, and I think we couldn't exist without those relationships. So again, very grateful for these large players to allow startups to innovate and play. And I think that's the synergy as I see it, where we can continue to be more focused, be the more, to your point of the agentic topic, like we could be the more kind of, AI agents that are designed to solve specific use cases, while maybe those companies take a much more of the orchestration layer or the more foundational model problem statements, which are outside the realm of any individual startup, maybe at the stage we're at. So anyways, Marco.
It's definitely a tough question, and I think that we will see a consolidation of all these startups in future because of two reasons. One reason is the complexity in technology. So, for example, as we started, we also tried to make, for example, the toolpath generation on our own by using some SDKs from well-known vendors, and like to create a new CAM system within the cloud. And last year we decided, and we decided that that's not possible to develop 30 or 40 years of experience of existing CAM infrastructure like Mastercam or GipsCam or HyperML to do a new approach of CAM programming within 2 or 3 years because it's too complex from a technology standpoint. And the second thing is nobody is financing this development to try to put all this experience into the cloud. I mean, we see with Onshape and PTC, we see that one of the big corporates in the CAD design, they are doing something into the cloud because they have experience in their legacy field, and then they transfer it into the cloud. And I think that's a approach what is possible. For up2parts, I see our benefit that we had from the beginning a holistic approach where we are like in the middle layer between different CAM and CAD systems. So we are not fixed to one of the systems, and it's like you have the possibility to create your company individual knowledge into a rule-based AI system. And when we, for example, when we are creating CAM projects, we are not creating CAM projects for Mastercam or for GipsCam or for HyperML. So we're creating a CAM project based on your corporate knowledge. And then you are able to decide if you like to transfer it to Mastercam or to GipsCam or to HyperML. And I think that is our approach. That's what will help us to be part of this ecosystem also in future. But in total, I see definitely a consolidation in the market because, it's too big. And as you said, the big companies like Siemens, Sandvik, and so on, they are all working on that stuff, and for sure they will find technologies and products within their own applications. And then maybe some of the really exciting startups are being bought or being replaced or from developments out of the big companies. But I think that's a common evolution in every new innovation field or a branch.
Well, yeah, because we've seen over the last couple of years, huge consolidation in simulation, right? With Altair and MSC going to from Hexagon to it was who it went to Synopsys. No, to Cadence when the MSC, the sale of MSC from Hexagon. And so, yeah, I think that I agree that there some consolidation might be happening in the CAM field next, because obviously we've already done the CAD stuff, all rolling up to the 3 companies or 4. It's pretty interesting. So if we switch gears to the customers, which we already started addressing to a degree, when you go to your customers, and if you look at digital maturity in a spectrum of 1 to 5, 1 being we still use Excel and we're still using email, to I've got this fully agentic, adaptive digital twin that's able to repair itself, which we're not at yet, or we won't, maybe not be for a long time. I would call that 5. So I'd say the general customers are somewhere between 1 and 3. I mean, maybe there's 1 or 2 in the world might be over 4. Is that the same experience you have? I mean, are you able to assess that? Because it's an interesting thing, because that's of course where you guys are bringing value. When you bring in an AI powered solution, it's going to hopefully help them mature. So who wants to pick that one first?
I can go for it. So I think in average, we are on a 2 when we see the customers. I think the most important tool in all manufacturing companies is Excel. Excel is everywhere, from small SMEs to big corporates. And that was something we realized in the beginning as we searched for structured data by our customers, and we saw that today the structured and especially context data is not there. And so we positioned up2parts now also as a possibility to set up structured and context data in manufacturing companies. Not focus on AI from the beginning, but have the possibility to store all your data at one single point of data. And so I think then we have the possibility to help our customers to increase their level in this question you asked. But I think in average, by a 2, for sure we have also some prospects, some customers. They are on a 3 or on a 4, but that's the minority.
How about Tanmay in the States? Do you have the same perspective?
Very similar, Michael. I think it's anywhere between a 1 and a 2. And I was looking at it from the lens of I think customers have made a lot of progress on traditional automation, but when it comes to embedding intelligence into the workflow, those are two different axes, if you may,
right,
of a digital maturity framework, right? So there's a lot of progress been made on automation, right? You see a lot more robotic cells. You see a lot more of cobots are becoming more common, especially in the more advanced shops and more at scale shops. So they are maybe at a 3 on an automation scale. But when it comes to embedding intelligence that can unlock autonomy in their workflows, they're maybe still close to a 1 or a 2. And then you can kind of pair it back from there. Like I would say that's probably the most advanced, and kind of work backwards from that.
Well, I like that perspective a lot. When I think of it, I'm thinking more is like around the data silos, right? The fact that you've got the PLM over here and the ERP over here, and all this CAM data sitting on somebody's desk on a bunch of printouts.
We are at 5, Michael.
What's that?
We're probably at a -5 in that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You would think that Formula One, maybe being as awesome and how much money they have, would be like a 5. And yet, when I had Michael Rosen from Quix on last week, he was like, no, you don't understand. They just have this data like basically everywhere. The test data is just, which is just insane, right? We're in 2025. You would have thought we would have gone further.
But I mean, not surprising, but I mean, I would say, like, from our experience, like we tend to work very closely with enterprise customers, right? Like that's where we focus. So you're talking about some of the largest organizations, leaders in their own industrial supply chains, and they are the ones who are starting to talk about how can I bridge my data across these different silos, right?
Wow.
And there are a lot of just fundamental reasons why it's hard.
The semantics are different, the transactional versus collaborative.
Yeah, and I mean, again, these are heterogeneous environments, right? No company has a homogeneous suite from BTC or Siemens, right? So the reality of the matter is, within a company and across their supply chain, where the data needs to be exchanged, you're gonna have a mix of different systems, and So data connectivity, I think, even at the most advanced companies, is still at a pretty low level of maturity today. But you are starting to see very clear motivation and dollars being spent to unlock that connectivity layer, which I think is the foundation to doing anything more intelligent with that data. So that's kind of where we are. So then if you think about all the other companies in the supply chain who are not as big or as advanced, I mean, they're really, in their own data silos. And I think for the next 10 years, it's probably going to be, there's going to be a slow journey towards more integration, which would be nice for, I think, companies like us, because that creates opportunity.
Yeah, obviously. Well, I was also thinking that the most mature ones would have a chief data officer, which is not the same as the IT guy, right? Someone just manages the data with a matrix of data owners and all the different BUs, and then data stewards and data custodians. Just the kind of organizational changes you need in order to make that happen. Because if that's all under IT, then it's just an IT thing, and it's just another solution to roll out. And when you talk about data, it's not a solution; it's a whole mindset. It's a revolution. Sorry, we didn't let you answer that one, Marco. You want to jump in?
No, everything good. I just have an additional thought also that you have, when it comes to AI in manufacturing, there is not one AI in manufacturing, and that's also the difference between Lambda Function and up2parts. I think the approach from Lambda by having the feedback from the machines and have a look into the tool selection and to the tool path, and then use AI to optimize that. I think that's one topic of AI. Then you have a topic of AI in the design phase, where you can maybe optimize your design by doing it more cost efficiency. And then you have our work preparation workflow, where you have another scope on AI. And so I think there are also different fields where you have a different level of AI readiness. Or it's always also important what you like to achieve with AI, against what do you optimating. And I think in Lambda Functions field, it's maybe today already easier for the customer to define a scope what you like to optimate in that field. And in work preparation, it's maybe harder because you have a lot of different data. As a job shopper, you have no own design department. You have to rely on the designs of external companies with a bunch of different designers, and there is more complex to have a general standard of context data. And that's also a thing I think we have to keep in mind, that when it comes to AI in manufacturing, there is no single solution or way to work with AI. Every data silo or every department has to define his own way of working with AI. That was just an additional thought I had during the talks.
Couldn't agree more, Marco. 100% agree. And I think, Michael, like where I'm having a lot of conversations with customers about is, particularly again enterprise customers when we're dealing with C-suite executives, is if any organization is truly serious about adopting AI, particularly in the world of industrials and manufacturing, the number one question to ask is, have you thought about what budget you intend to allocate towards this? And 99% of the time, the answer is they don't know. Right? And that's quite indicative, I think, of the current state of AI maturity in this domain. Like people are starting to, they want to learn about it. They want to do something about it. I think there's a very clear, they're very clear at a strategic level. They understand that they need to adopt these new technologies to avoid getting left behind and to stay competitive and to stay being a leader. But I don't think they're not the shift in the market is not there, where there's a very clear defined budget on the P&L, which is clear where that money is going to come from, who's going to fund it. I think they're in that exploration phase. I think they're kind of, most companies are kind of still trying to figure out, and then that's okay. But I think that evolution over the next 12 to 24 to 36 months, I think as that clarity on use cases, that clarity on ROI comes in, when people start experimenting with low cost tools, I think we'll start creating a more structured marketplace.
And that's something you mentioned earlier, Tanmay. And that's definitely changed over the last 3 years. And we recognize it also in the emo that 3 years ago, the people are coming to the booth and just reading up2parts, AI-assisted work preparation. What's that? And what can you do for me? And on the last emo now in September, the people come to the booth with a I know you, I know your competitors, that's my use case, that's what I would like to achieve. I think that's the reason why they don't have a budget, because they have no goal at the moment defined. And that's still in the exploration phase, because when they say we would like to use AI to decrease our tool costs by 10%, then they can go into their costs and can do a calculation what they're saving in money. And then they can say, okay, then we have this budget. But today they are still, as you mentioned, in this exploration phase, but it's improved the last 3 years from what's AI in manufacturing into I heard from AI in manufacturing and it's interesting. And I think the next 3 years we will see that's our use case, that's our goal, that's our budget.
Exactly.
And do you think that implementing Lambda Function or up2parts is one of those accelerators to getting to digital maturity? When you put in a solution as a customer, does he get a bit of an epiphany? Like does it push them to become a bit more mature in their data in order to get more out of the tool and get to those KPIs faster than they would have otherwise?
I can start here. I definitely think so, Michael. There's definitely an element of, like, I didn't realize I could save this money that quickly, right? Like, so for us, a lot of times the focus is like, what's the quickest ROI? Like, where can I show time to value, right? Like, reduce the fastest thing I can deliver value. And 99% of the time, it may not even be with AI. Like, maybe that value is just in looking at data a different way. Like, it's just basic stuff, but that starts opening the mind of the executives and the mid management and everybody else to say, okay, there's more here than meets the eye. And I think we see it as like, it's a stepping stone. Like, I don't think Lambda Function is the one all be all solution at all. Like, it's one tool
one piece.
To Marco's point. And I mean, I think there are many different elements that will come together. But I think we do see that the tools like Lambda and hopefully and up2parts and others, like, just opening the market for a broader adoption wave. But I do think it'll still take time. This is not something that suddenly, AI is not going to take over the world of manufacturing tomorrow. But I think there's a lot of impact potential to make life easier for people. But Marco,
I see it the same way. We definitely have prospects or customers. They have a real benefit from the beginning because they maybe they have a niche or anything else where it already fits very well, or they have the data for that. But I think, and that's the same what Tanmay mentioned, is that sometimes it's also helpful for the prospects to fail with an AI project, because then they see what they are lacking.
Right.
So they heard about AI, they would like to do something about AI, and then they do an evaluation call, and then you ask them, do you have a tool management system? And tool management system or tool data is mandatory for a solution like us. And then they say, no, we buy the tools as it goes. So what's on the market? And then you can say, okay, then our solution will not help you because we need proper tool data. And you need proper tool data to evaluate our solution if we select the correct tools and choose the correct tool data. And then that's also a helpful step to increase the digital maturity, to see, okay, I would like to do something with AI, but I have to realize that I have to do some groundwork,
some homework.
That's the same with robots on machines. So just put a robot in front of a milling machine. That doesn't mean that you are doing 24/7. You need standards. Automation always needs standards, and I think that's also something we and all the others AI companies in manufacturing can give like a mirror to the prospect, to the customer, and say, okay, yeah, good that you are thinking about AI, but you have to do some homework.
Wow, I love these answers. These are really great. Thanks, guys. Just before we go, we got a couple of minutes, and I wanted to because I do get younger people on joining the podcast and listening, and I know there's a lot of AI anxiety. Like the AI is going to take my job. Why am I even bother to study? Because what I'm doing is going to be done by an AI agent anyway. What kind of advice do you have to these younger engineers that are just starting their career? All three of us have a long careers in this industry. What kind of advice do you have so they stay relevant, so that they, that they're going to be able to contribute in the years to come?
Would you like to start, Tanmay?
Go for it.
Okay, you can start.
Oh, yeah, no, I can.
He's still thinking about his answer.
I would start by saying definitely no advice. I'm no one to give advice. But what I can share is like, look, as an engineer, hopefully our job is not to execute tasks. Tasks are what AI agents are designed to do. The question is identifying the right problems to work on, framing the right problems to kind of think about solving, and then building AI agents to solve those problems for you. So I think if you just reframe that perspective, I think it makes it for a very exciting time as opposed to a scary time. I think, but yes, change is always going to be different. So we got to keep an open mind. I'm a big fan of constantly trying to just learn and see what's happening next. And I think there's a huge opportunity for the engineers who are coming out now to do 100x more output, in a much shorter amount of time, just because of the tools that are available to us. So yeah, I would just look at it from the lens of our job should be to let's try and find the problems that are worth solving, and then let's think about creative ways to approach those problems, and then use AI to the hilt to help create leverage in solving those problems faster.
Thanks, Tanmay.
Yeah, and I think the engineers, all the people in manufacturing, they have it in their own hands. You can use AI tools just to and rely totally on them and use AI as a single point of truth, or you can be the leader or sit in the driver's seat and use AI as an additional tool. And maybe that's also what Tanmay mentioned or meant to use AI tools to make more workload, to improve your work results, to use AI also as a learning platform, to increase your experience and so on. And I think when you always doubt the status quo of the answers of the AI, that's maybe and not advice or just my opinion, that we are humans should not only rely on AI and take AI as the real truth, and always be reconsider the answers of a AI and phrase my own knowledge, maybe assisted, supported by AI, but not give everything into AI, because when I give everything into AI, there's no wonder when I'm being replaced.
Yeah, it's like easy to just let it, when it says, "Would you like me to do this?" and you just say yes. It's very it's very easy to delegate that all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a great time in this conversation. I think I've learned a lot. I appreciate you guys joining me, Tanmay and Marco. This has been great. For those that are listening live, there's another podcast on Friday with No Space and in Infinite Form. This can be great. And next week, I'll have TD Engine and OpsMate, which is going to be exciting. So anyway, I wanted to once again thank Marco and Tanmay so much for joining me. And we'll see you guys next time. So thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for organizing, Marco. Great seeing
you. Yeah.
Bye now.
Take care. See you soon.